Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of SAP Basis Training. In this training, we will learn the overview of client tools which is available in SAP system landscape. We will also learn the process of client copy and client transport, and we will explore the system requirement for processing a client copy as well. As we previously briefly seen, in any SAP implementation, you may require several clients during your implementation process of the SAP systems. As a basis administrator or let's say SAP system administrators, it is our job to create and set up clients and manage all these clients across SAP system landscape. Previously, we also seen the client management, that is SAP client settings. So far what we have seen is about client settings. What all the client settings available, what is cross client informations, what is client specific informations, and these kind of informations. However, we did not see how to create a new client. Okay, so the difference between the previous sessions and this one is, here we are going to create the clients. The previous one is to maintain the clients and the client settings. So as we know, in a particular client of an SAP system, we have three main components or three main elements of the client specific data. That is basically we have client dependent customizing data. For example, the company code or plans and storage location, these are all client specific, that is client dependent customizing data. And we also have user master, that is our users which we are creating in the systems, as well as we have the roles and the profiles and everything related to users also we create for each client, that also available. As well as we have the application data that is stored in the tables, that is the application data again based on the delivery class of this particular table. We will see what are all the delivery class which we have in the tables. And so the application data, the main key point here is the application data is also saved in the specific client in the data format. And you need to remember, the client copy or the client transport are designed to replace the data of one client with the data from the another client, meaning to say it is not designed to combine two different clients. So once you do a client copy from one client to another client, it is going to replace the data from one client to another client. Of course, you can create a new copy of clients, you can create a new client. However, once you create the client, you will copy some information from another information. So for right now, for example, in our ECC system, we have client 001, that is a default client. As I keep repeating that we are not supposed to use this client, but we are still using it for our customizing purposes. However, if you want to create a new client in the system, we will create a client, let's say for example 101, that will be our new client number. Then we will copy the existing data from the client 001 to that specific clients. Whenever you create a client, then you need to copy the data from this another client, then only the client will be copied completely. So you have the copy client options. We have different options how we can do this copy. However, we need to see based on the situations we need to use this option. We will see that again in our coming slides. So main point here is this client copy is not designed to combine two different clients. Let's say we have two clients like client 000, let's say for client 001 and client 100, we have two clients. If you want to combine, let's say for example, the application data from two different clients into one client, the client copy is not going to help. Whenever you do a client copy, you are going to replace the data from the destination client with the source client data. That meaning to say, if let's assume that this particular client had already some data, then we are going to replace. If it is a new client, the story is different, that you are going to copy from the another client. But if it is an existing client, when you do a client copy from another client which has the data, and this particular client also had some data, it is going to replace everything from this particular client. So that we have to be quite careful, and we need to understand this one very clearly, that it's not designed to combine the data of different clients. It's going to replace the data from another client. We also should remember, if you copy any application data, that means when you are doing a client copy, if you are copying an application data, then you need to also copy the specific customizing data as well. Meaning to say, if let's say you have some transactional data, the sales order or something, so if you want to copy that, of course the sales order belongs to what company code, what are the setting belongs to the company code and plan, and another customizing data which is related to this application data also needs to be copied. How we will do this copy? When you are doing a client copy, that you can specify what you want to copy. That's called profile definitions. What all needs to be copied? This we will see in our coming slides. What all the specification, what all the selection criteria which is available during the client copy in our coming slides. So the point here is, so whenever you do any copy of application data, then you need to also copy the client's specific customizing settings, because this is necessary in order to fulfill the copy process of an application data. Next, we will see what are all the methods of client copies which is available in SAP. The first one is called local client copy. Then we have remote client copy. The third one is client transport. So we have three different methods of doing client copy. First, let's see what is local client copy. We will see that in detail how each of this method will work in very detail. The local client copy means copying a client within the system, and the remote client copy means copying a client in another system using RFC. The client transport also kind of a client copy, but you can transport the setting of the copy client informations as a transport file, as a TR file. Then you can import to a different system. That means you can make it as a file and you can copy it in another system and you can import it. So we have three methods of client copy. First one is local client copy, remote client copy, then client transport. Then we will see the client copy profiles. The client copy tool generally provides the informations which is required, or the client copy tool can copy these specific components from the source client to the target client. In general, you can specify, for example, in our scenarios, you can copy only the user master data. User master data is only determine the target system. If the profile with the user master data is copied, then the authorization profiles and roles, everything belongs to the particular users, can be copied over to a separate system. Meaning to say, when you are copying from one client to another client, you want to copy only the users from one client to another client, then you can copy only the user. Or if you want to copy only the user and the related roles and the profiles and everything, then you can copy it there. So if let's say you want to copy only the customizing data, not the users, If you want to copy only the customizing data, for example, then you can copy only the customizing data. Then if you, let's say if you want to copy the customizing data as well as the transactional data, then we can have a selection criteria based on this profile, then you can copy it like that. So we have different ways or different profile selections you can make. This what is described here. We have different kind of profile selections which you can use these profile selections to, you can copy the specific informations which you require from one client to another client. So SAP delivers a profile which can be used during your client copy process. These are all the SAP delivered profiles which we can use for our client copy process, or let's say client copy as well as client transport process. So these profiles can be used based on the type of client copy which you are going to use. For example, as I said, the user master record. In fact, this user master record options were not there in 4.0. So it was almost introduced on 4.5 or 4.6. The user masters, before that it was not there. So meaning to say that SAP keeps improvising this based on the experience, and it will keep creating new profiles whenever it is necessary. In typical client copy, whenever you select these profiles, basically when we are doing a client copy, we are copying table entries or tables or table entries to from one system to another system or one client to another system. Because as we know, when you do any customizing, all your information is going to be saved in the form of table entries. So we are going to copy tables or table entries from one client to another client. So depending on the copy options what you select from this particular list, then SAP will determines what are all the tables needs to be copied based on the selection criteria. For example, if you select customizing profile and the table belongs to customizing, and then these tables are copied to the target client. If the, for example, if the table contains application data, however, this data will be determined based on the delivery class of particular table. If you go to SC11 and see the table properties, then you can see the class of each table. So we have the classification in each table based on what kind of information which is saved in the specific table. So depending on the class of the specific table from the profile which you are selecting, the SAP will determine what needs to be copied or what table classes should be copied for the specific profile selections. For example, you can see here, this is the table class definitions of SAP. To understand this table delivery class during the client copy or the transport process, as you know, whenever you create a new tables, we create a development class, and then we assign this specific table to this particular development class. In general, the table contains application data should be delivered with the table class A. Then the table contains the customizing data, or customizing data have a different class, and again depending on how SAP changes the, or how SAP saves this customizing settings, then we have delivery class C must contains all the new entries of SAP, let's say, and we have delivery class G, which also changed by SAP because that's only used by SAP. Then delivery class we have S and E and W for table containing the control and SAP systems such as TADAR and TSTC, because TADAR, TSTC is all systems related. TSTC is the table where it saves the program versus the T code informations. So we have quite a lot of tables which is again defined by SAP, and we have this table, the table class W is, for example, the table class, the SAP system table, that um, internal table, we can say. These contents are purely technical. This is not taken into account when you are doing client copy. So it's an internal table which generally which is not used for your transactional purposes. So meaning to say which is used, however you do not have, yes, data saved which you can use it for client copy. And let's say, for example, delivery class L is for the temporary data, such as, for example, this spool data which we have seen it before. That means for the from the background process data. If you see the tables which is related to background process, which is TSP and the TBT tables, these tables are classified as L, that is the temporary data, meaning to say this, if this data is lost also, the SAP does not have a problem for running the SAP system. So let's go back to our previous slides. So whenever you do any client copies, it is always advisable that you do the client copy in a background mode. That means using background processing. Meaning to say, in client copy you can also do it in foreground, like in a dialog mode, but the client copy is going to take quite a lot of time, because you have a lot of table entries, you have a lot of data which needs to be copied or which needs to be created. So it's going to take quite a lot, many hours. In that case, you need to copy the client, or you need to copy the clients, or whatever the method you are using, local method or a remote client copy whatsoever. Then it is always better that you use the background process in order to avoid any inconsistency in the systems. Meaning to say, if otherwise if it terminates, your dialog process terminate, then you have inconsistency. So if you do it in a background process, so it's again depends on the system. Once you have the background process free, then it will keep on executing. So you don't need to depend on your dialog work process when you logged in. So you don't need to really wait for that to be completed in the dialog mode. So it's always recommended to use background process for your client copy, as well as you make sure the client copy is done in a with the user which has the highest privileges. In general, what we do, we use the standard users, which is SAP star or DADIC, so that the client copy does not have any problem because of the user which you are using and the authorization related to that. The client copy, whenever you do a client copy, generally you do the execution of the client copy from the target systems. So when you create the client, the client will have your standard users only. You can use the standard users to log in, and we have some more information. So whenever you create this client, you need to use the standard user and standard password. For that you have a system parameter. We will see how does that works when we are logging into the systems, and you use the standard users, then it will be quite easy that you are sure that you do not get into a problem of authorization problem or some user specific problems. And one more thing we need to make sure is that the space, you have enough space in your database as well as in the OS to save the particular data files. In general, if you, let's say, if you create a fresh client which does not have any data. Let's say for example our systems which you are using now, these are all fresh systems. You do not have any application data. Even the user master which we created is 1 or 2 users. In general, if let's say if you are not done this as well, it's a fresh system, you do not have anything. Let's say like ECC, you just implemented the system and just you wanted to create the fresh client from the 001. In that cases it may take maybe approximately 500 MB. Let's say it will be quite small because you are not replicating any repository objects like programs and all these things. Like tables also, you are going to use the same table, but you just have another entry, your client entry in each tables, so you're really not making much changes there. In that case it will be around 500 MB or little bit more than 500 MB we can say. And this you need to keep in mind. So this again depends on what kind of client you are going to copy. If let's say you are copying a production client or production system, then in that case the data which in that particular client is going to be quite huge. It's not 500 MB. We are going to talk in GBs or in terabytes maybe in some cases. So in that type of situations you need to consider the storage requirement for the client which you are going to copy. Also make sure that the runtime environment is quite large. Let's say if you are using some dialog process to do something, then you need to make sure that you have maximum work process runtime so that your process is not terminated in the middle. And remember, when you are doing a client copy, you are not sure that this particular client which you are going to copy, the system copy is let's say you are not sure the space required for the particular client you are trying to copy, then in that cases you can also do a test run. If when we go to the system, we see that one, when you do a test client copy, then you can simulate the exact client copy options and how much space it's required and this kind of information. Also you also know how much time it's required to do this client copy. This kind of informations you can get it from the test run. So it is always advisable that you do a test run for all the client copy, then you know what time it's required and how much time it's required and how much space it's required. This kind of information will be quite easy for you to do this. And then this kind of information will help you to do this client copy actual run quite easy. So as I said, once you copy all the datas, the target system datas will be erased and the source system will be copied here. There'll also be one more problems. Let's say for example, the logical systems. We already know what is logical systems. So you will have some of the transactional data which is linked to the logical systems. Then this needs to be adjusted, and after the client is being copied using the program which is called BDLS. If you run the BDLS program, then it will automatically change the logical system of the transactional document to the new logical system which is in the present client. So as we seen, we have 3 different type of client copies, that is local client copy, remote client copy, and the client transport. Let's see one by one how does this client copies are going to work in detail and what are all the situations we can use this client copy. Meaning to say, once we understand how this client copy is going to work, then we ourselves can decide on what situations we can use this specific client copy, on what kind of client copy which will be feasible for the specific situations. Okay, first let's see local client copy. The local client copy means copying the client in the same SAP system. That's what we have seen in our previous slide. So if you go back to our previous slide, local client copy means copying the client within the same SAP system. That is local client copy. So how do we do the client copy? So we also know the transaction code SEC4 where you can create a client. So the process works like this, that first you log into any one of the client in the SAP system, whichever you wanted to copy, and you create a client from that specific client using the transaction SEC4. So in SEC4 we can maintain the client as well as we can also create the client. So it's basically just a table entry that you are going to create one client called, let's say, 100. So you will create a client in the system using the transaction code SEC4. You will simply create a client. Then you will log in to the specific client where you want that particular client should be copied. Let's say this is the target client, this is the, let's say this is the target client, this is a source client, and we, all this thing is one specific system. Let's say this is our ECC system. We have a client 000 and we have one client 001, and we want to create one more client from the 001. Okay, in the general situation, 001 may not be available in all the systems. Again, depends on what versions you want to implement. Let's assume you have 001. So we seen that 001 should not be used, but if it's suppose you want to use 001, we can still use it. It's not a problem. Actually 000 is the one which we should not use it at all, because it should be as it is. 001 is a copy of 000. Okay, that's the one what we have, but it also comes with the standard installation in the EHP0. So we can also use it for productive scenarios, but in general scenarios we don't use that. We create another one client and we use that. So you can also use 000 to copy the new client, or you can also use the 001 to copy, make a new clients. So we need to log in to the target client after you created the new client in SAC4. So login, how do we log into the new client? For that we can use the standard users, SAP star. So the standard users password for the standard users, once you created this particular client, will be pass, PASS in small. That will be the user ID and password. You will log into the target client. So after you log into the target client, then from the target client you will execute the client copy using the transaction code SCCL. Then there you will specify what kind of profile you want to copy, the profile which we have seen it before, the different profiles, SAP profiles which is delivered by SAP. You will select one of this profile to copy. However, if let's say when you are creating the client, it may be possible that you cannot use the standard SAP star password as pass. That is because you can prevent using the SAP star standard password in your systems because of security reason. So now we know when you create a client, you have a user called SAP star, the password is pass. So this is known to everybody. It also available in internet. Let's say if you go to Google it, then you go to SAP star password for the new client, then you can find this as pass. So for that reason, we have a parameter called login/automatic user SAP star. Okay, this value should be 0. In our ECQ system, we already set to 0. Let's go to ECC system. this screen shows that we already log into the system, so you have three different options. Either you can continue with this login and it will terminate other login, or you can continue with this login without terminating the other login, or you can terminate this login itself. This is again, you have a separate parameter for this to disable these options. Based on the SAP license agreement, that we should not use this option in the productive systems. That means productive system using one user, you should log into one specific client only, or one specific SAP GUI. That means one dialog user only should use one login. So we can disable that. We have a separate parameter for that one. Now let us see the parameter which we are looking into, that login / no automatic user underscore SAP star. Go to RZ11. Now let's set 11. If you go to login / no automatic user SAP STAR SAP star. Okay, now it is 0. By default it will be 1. Now it is 0. If this is 1, then we cannot use the SAP star and pass user ID and password when you create the new client. So whenever you create the new client, you have to make sure this becomes 0. Once you use a new client, log into the new client, change the password, everything is fine, then you change it back to 1. Okay, otherwise anybody can use the standard user ID and password. So that's the reason this parameter is there. Okay, so if you go to ECC system, it is still 1. However, if you change this parameter, you need to restart the system. So you need to always restart the system and make sure that SAP star user ID and password is not used by anyone, because this is very sensitive. Okay, this we need to keep in mind. From the target client, using the SAP star user, then you will start the client copy using the transaction code SCCL. So we need to also remember different transaction codes for the different client copy. So you will first use the SCC4 to create the client, then you will use SCCL transaction code from the target client to begin the client copy. So once you execute SCCL, then you will come to the screen where you can select the profile. We've seen what is the profile means. So you can specify which profile you want to copy, then you can specify what is the source client for this one. The profile also, you have a profile called SAP all. You have a profile called SAP all. That means it will copy all specific data without change document. Change document means for example, when we create user, you have a change document, who created this user and this kind of informations. Same like that, if you go to business transactional data, you have a lot of change documents there. So it will copy all data without change document. That is SAP all. That means you copy everything. Then you have SAP underscore APPL. That is for customizing and application data without documents. Okay, then you have SAP underscore APX, that is a SAP all without authorization profile and roles. Okay, it will same like SAP all, but you do not have authorization profile and roles. And customizing, if let's say you do not want to have a data, if you want to create a copy only with the customizing settings, then we can use this one, customizing settings. And if you use customized CUSTV, that means user variants. That means the user, whenever they log in, the user can have their own variants to execute specific programs. For example, we had when we see in our background processes, then we created variants. So these variants we created for specific program. Same like that, you can create variant for each program or each transaction code, and you can save it under your user ID. So whenever you go to that specific transaction code, you can use that variant to execute some specific reports. So these variants may be quite high. Let's say in the business scenario, people use this kind of variants quite a lot. In that situations, if you want to copy the variants along with the customizing settings, you can also select this options, customizing and variants. Then you have customizing without authorization and roles, and that means it will copy all the customizing without authorization profile and roles. And then next one is only authorization profile and roles. That means it will copy only the profiles and roles but not the users. Yeah, we have different options here, SAP underscore profile and SAP underscore user. SAP underscore profile, it will copy only the authorization profile and roles, and it will not copy the user master. So let's say if you want the same user master, then you have to use user. This will copy the user master record and authorization profile. Here you need to be a little bit careful, because once you copy the user, the old users which you logged in, for example SAP star, will be replaced with the password of or the authorizations of the source system. So we have to be quite careful there. But if you want to copy only the roles, then you can use these options. And let's say if you want to use this customizing user master record and user variant, then this will also copy the user master record and user variant as well as customizing. Then the next option is customizing and the user master record. Here it will copy the customizing and user master record, but it will not copy the authorizations and profiles. Here also we have to be quite careful. Let's say you are using some let's say in these cases that users which will be created in the target system will not have any roles or profiles, so we have to be quite careful there. Then user without authorization profiles and roles, here what it will do, it will copy only the users without authorization. It will not copy anything, only the user master will be copied. Okay, then authorizations you will assign it later. Here it will also copy the user master record authorization profiles. Now you will think, why do I have so many selection criteria? Because mainly if you see this users and profiles is been little bit mixed up here. This again depends on your situation. Let's say you have a let's say you are doing a new SAP implementations. Okay, in that case you have a QA system, productive system and development system, and you had a training system. Let's say after some time you realized after a point in time you are doing some end user training, for example, but till then that production system is not available. You are not created the productive system. It's still in QA. SAP project is ongoing, so production is not yet set up, and you have a quality system, or you also have a training system, for example, let's say. So for the training, you called all the SAP users and given training, and all the SAP users are created in the training systems. Okay, but the training system, you will have more authorizations because they want to test a lot of things. They wanted to understand the whole scenario behind that. So you can lot of authorization is given in the user in the training system. Now in the end you are going to set up the productive system. Now you set up the productive system. After that you realize that user master creation is going to be a big task. However, you did this particular task in the training system, but the training system have a lot of authorization. The user master is already available in the training system. So there could be two possibilities. You can copy all the users and roles from the training system, make a productive system, then you do not have much problem, provided the training system has the roles and authorization exactly the way exactly the user wants in the productive system. In that case, you can use you can use SAP underscore user to create the productive system, so you do not have any customizing, or you do not have any program, or you do not have any application. You have only the user and roles, and the customizing and the other workbench related changes, anyway you will have TRs which you can transport it later. That anyway you will do it when the system is going live. However, let's assume that the training system you given more authorization than the productive system, but you want only the user master. Let's assume it's say 5,000 6,000 users, user master to be replicated in the productive system. The productive system you will give different set of authorization. In that case you can copy the users without roles and profiles, so you can avoid creating users in the development system or in another system, maybe or a pre-production system, or it could be a second training system or for the cutover test. So we have different options in the example which we have discussing. You can see this kind of scenarios, you can make a decision which profile you want to use on the particular scenarios. So once you are doing a client copy, you need to remember quite a lot of things. Let's say in generally we lock all the users in the source systems, because when you are copying from the running system, it is possible somebody else also log into the source system and they are trying to do some posting some data or posting some documents or trying to do some changes which will create inconsistency in the systems. In the target client also it is possible somebody can log in and make some kind of modifications there. So it is recommended to make the system consistent or to copy the client consistent, that you do not log in or do any changes in the source system, or do not log into the target system and do any changes, meaning to say not us as a basis consultant who is going to do the client copy, that any of course we need to log in, meaning to say the end user should not log in and make any changes apart from the person who is going to do the copy. The best scenario could be, in the practical scenario, what we do is first we go to the source system, we lock all the users, all the users which is available in the system, and keep only the basis user who is actually going to do the client copy, and the SAP standard users, rest everything we will lock it. So once you start copying, all the users are already locked, and so they cannot use the system. During the copying also, when you copy the user master to the target system, there also the user will be anyway locked because it's a copy from the source system, so they cannot use it. Once it's finished, then you can unlock the user from the source system. Then once the target system is ready, then you can also unlock the user from the target system. That will be the ideal scenario to do it. So it's again depends how do you want to do that. So the recommended method is that you do not use or you do not do any changes in the source as well as the target system during the client copy in order to make the system consistent. As we seen, SAP delivers the software, that means SAP ERP with the standard client 000, and so you may not work with the client 000 until unless you have some specific setup which needs to be done, some kind of our TMS settings and stuff like this. Otherwise we may not use. However, you can use the client 001 as a productive system if it is exist. However, client 001 you can use as a productive client, but in the ideal scenarios we do not use that one. The reason is that we can use it because it's actually a copy of client 000. Okay, so you can still use it if you want. However, SAP recommends you create a new client from client 000 for your productive environment. And one more thing we should remember is that whenever you make a client copy, it does not mean that you need to copy everything. For example, let's say I want to create a new client with the profile SAP all, but some of the tables which from the source client, which I don't want to copy it in the target client for some reason. Let's say, for example, some enhanced debug logging or some tables which you do not want to copy it in the target system. You can also eliminate this table manually when you are doing client copy. Okay, now let us log into our SAP system and see how we can create a new client and how we can copy the client. Okay, delete the first login name. Okay, now here the first step is that we need to create a new client, okay, using the transaction code SEC4. Okay, we go to this transaction code, go to the change mode. It's giving you a caution. This is a cross client change. Okay, it's fine. Now you select the new entries. Our client number, which we want to use it 101. Let's say this is the production client, and we can specify the city. Let's say New York City. We can also specify the logical name if you know, otherwise just leave it as it is. We can also specify the uh, role of this client, whether it is production or test. At the time being, we don't do anything, we just save it as it is, which we already seen what all these options, so we don't go through this now. We simply save this. Okay, this is the mandatory fields, just we filled in. Let's save it. Now you can see the data is saved. That means we just created an entry for new client. This does not mean that we created a new client. So we need to copy that client in the second step. So the first step is go to SEC4 and create a new entry. Okay, this is a new entry only. Okay, so now it's created. Now what we can do is we can log into the specific client using the standard user SAP star. Let's go to ECQ. Our client is 101. Select SAP star. Then the password is pass, small pass, PASS. Enter. It's a license agreement. Okay. So right now we logged into the target client, client 101, which we can see it here. From here, now we need to execute the local client copy. So you go to the transaction SCCL, the local client copy, enter. Now we need to specify the profile, what profile you want to copy. We select this and say, we can say all users, if you can say. So right now let's do it like this. Let's cancel this one. If you go to SC16, USR02, let's see how many users at the moment this particular client have. Let's execute. This does not have any entry. That means this particular client does not have any users. We have only standard user in the systems. Okay, if I go to the client 001, if I go to XC16, let's go to USR02. Let's see, we have quite a lot of users here. Okay, these are all the users which is presently available in this client. Now let's see how we can copy these users to the new client. Okay, so in the new client we do not have anything, it's simply blank, so no entries. If you say the 0 entries, so we wanted to copy the users with their authorizations. Okay, so let's go to SCCL again. Let me select the profile, user master record and authorization profile. Okay, SAP user, then the source client is 001. This is our source clients. Now if you want to run the test run, you can select this and run a test run. You always run it in background as recommended by SAP, or you can also say start immediate. That means it's going to run it in the foreground. And this is parallel processing. We will come to that later in the coming slides. We will come to this later. Is for parallel processing. Right now we just do the test run. Let's say I go to schedule background. When you say schedule background, this is a source client, this is a profile we are going to use, and we say schedule immediate, and we will select immediately. That means it's going to execute this background job immediately. And the options, let's say if you have a background server, then you can select the background server, otherwise we can leave it blank. Same like our normal background jobs, if you want to select, you can select, otherwise just leave it blank, let the system select it. Okay, schedule the job. So this is what we are going to do. In this particular screen you can see what role we have selected. The target client is 101. This is the profile name SAP underscore user, and the source client is 001. So from 001 we are going to copy all the SAP underscore user to the target client 101, and you can also see what role is going to be copied based on the profile name. Okay, customizing data, no flavors we are not going to copy. We are going to copy authorization profiles and roles and user data. Okay, this is a source client, and now we are going to run it in the test mode. Let's say continue. Now you can see client copy verification, local client copy test run can be performed in the simulation copy run. All data is read but not saved in the database. That means when you do a test run, it will simulate the copy, but all data will be read but not saved in the database. Carry out the resource analysis. The data is only counted to this particular task. To carry out the resource analysis, data is only counted without being read directly. It is quicker than the simulation. Okay, only you wanted to check or you wanted to simulate. When you do a simulate, it will read all the data but it will not save the data. If you do a carry out resource analysis, it will not read the data but it will only count the data. Okay, so you can basically choose between which you want to do. I will select right now resource check because we can want to finish it faster. Let's say resource check. Otherwise the simulation will take exactly the same time as when you copy. Okay, now it says the background job was successfully scheduled. The log is displayed in SEC3. So SEC3 is a monitoring transaction code. You can see all the logs, all the jobs which is scheduled for client copy. You can see there. Let's see, go to SEC3. It's a client copy log which logs all the activity related to client copy. Now here you can see it's executing test. Okay, it is not completed. Okay, it's successfully completed. If you want to see the detail, if you select and see detail, test run successfully completed. That means there is no errors. So if there is any problem, it will report it here. So we do not have any problems. If you say resource analysis, you can see the detail what has been analyzed. So this is the table which we are going to be copied. With this what is required. These are all the tables, 54 tables going to be copied, and this is the KB of some entries, table entry. So it's basically nothing because we have very less data in the SAP user. So the text run is successful in our case. So let's go back and do the actual run. Let's go to SCCL for the local client copy and the SAP user. Now we will not do the test run, we'll schedule it in the background, and we will leave all this option as it is. Schedule immediately, schedule the job, continue. Okay, now it is scheduled in the background. Let's go to SCC3. You can see now the process is running. This will take some time, depends on the selection criteria and the data what we have. At the moment we have quite less data in the user, so it should not take much time. However, it will take some more time because it has to copy all the necessary tables which also related to this user environment. Now you can see the copying process is completed successfully. So let's go back to the transaction SC16. You can see USR02. Let's execute. You can see all the users are created in the client 001. Okay, so basically it copied all the users as well as the related roles also should have been copied. Let's take one of the user here. Let's go to /n su01. Let's see the roles. You can also see the particular roles also copied and it's assigned to the user. Okay, and remember the user right now which we have logged in is SAP star. The SAP star also should have been copied from the source system, so the password is not going to remain as pass provided if it is changed in the source system. So we already changed the password in the source system. Let's say if I go to exit from here and try to log in again. Using client 101 SAP star. If I put the password PASS, it says it's a wrong password, but if I put the password of the source system, now I can log into this particular client 101 using SAP star. So it means it copied all the users with their user IDs, password, as well as all the roles. So this is how the local client copy works. So please remember, it is going to replace all the data from your destination system, destination client. So you have to be very careful when you are doing a client copy. Make sure the test is done so that if you have any inconsistent data or if you have less memory or less space in the database, then you already know. Otherwise, it will stop in the middle of the copying. So we can avoid these kind of situations. So this is about local client copy. Next, let us look at what is remote client copy. The remote client copy allows you to copy the data between two different SAP systems. The local client copy, what we have seen, copying within the SAP system, that is local client copy. The remote client copy will allow you to copy from a different SAP system. The interesting part in remote client copy is that let's assume that you have cross-client customizing, then you will also be able to copy the cross-client customizing from one system to another systems. The remote client copy procedures work almost similar to local client copy, but using an RFC connection. That means using an RFC target client, you can copy from the remote system. The remote client copy is very easy to use. Basically, it does not require a file space. Let's say if you want to copy from one system to another systems, we have another method that you can export this one, then carry it over, copy the TR files to a next system, then you can import it. In remote client copy, the advantage is that you do not need to have any file space, or it does not occupy any file space, does not occupy any file system space. So using the RFC, you can directly copy to the remote system itself. The one more very important thing is when you are doing remote client copy, you can also check the consistency of the repository object. So you have a special functionality also available. Let's say remote system comparison. Using that one, you can compare the remote system with the source system. In general, the repository must be identical with the source system, meaning to say the source system as well as the target system should have the same repository. Then only you will be able to do this client copy. However, you can also check the consistency before you start copying. The remote client copy also works with the similar fashion as like our local client copy. You need to create the client using SCC4, then you use the transaction code SCC9 for the remote client copy. Then we can use the RFC function to copy from the source systems. Maybe we can log into our system and see how we can use remote client copy. ECQ system. Let's log into ECQ. So we already have a client called 101. We will create one more client, 102. Let's go to SCC4. Let's create one more client, new entry 102. Productive production client, and let's put the same city and save. Okay, we have a new client. So let's close this, and I will log into the new client using the standard SAP star password. EASS 102 is our client. Let's enter. Okay, right now I logged into ECQ 102. Now from ECQ system, you need a RFC connection to ECC, where we are going to copy the source client. So let us create RFC connection to our source client. Let's go to SM59. Create ECC copy CLN, copy client. Okay, copy client ECC. Okay, the connection type is 3. ABAP connection. So we need to specify our ECC host name, that is ECC demo, that is the host name. It will pick up the IP address automatically. System name is 00. We need to specify the logon security, that means the client username and password. So let's log into ECC system. Let's create a user. Let's log in as SAP basis. Let's use 01. Let's create a user. Let's say CLNT copy. CLNT copy is our username. Then I will give a password. They will make this as a system user. We can also use communication user. Let's make it a system user. Let's put the password. Okay, then I will assign SAP all and SAP new to make it easy. Okay, so we have an user. So we need to specify this user in the ECQ system in order to log into our ECC system to the client 001. Then we are going to key in the user ID and password to the ECC system, ECQ system. Let's go to ECQ system. Okay, the client is 001. This is the user. Let us also specify the password. Okay, so save. Let's check the test connection authorization test. Okay, you can log in. The authorization is fine. So now we created a RFC connection, which is ECC underscore CPY underscore CLN. Okay, so we need to use this RFC connection for our remote client copy. So before that, we are going to create some sample data in the ECC system. So for example, when you copy the system, we need to make sure that these users are being copied. Let's create some user. Okay, we are already in SU01. Let's say CPY CLNT01 is a user. Create. Just deactivate the password. Okay. Let's put some validity date 0101.2015 and 01.02.2015. Let me copy this to 2. Deactivate user, save. Copy to 03. Copy 04. Copy 05. So we have some sample user, so we can verify the copy is completed properly. So we created some sample user. Okay, now we have done. We can also exit from this system. Okay, right now we have logged in only to ECQ system to the client 002 what we have created. So in order to start the client copy, we go to the transaction code SCC9. Here we need to specify the profile. If you see here, you can also see the additional profiles which is related to cross-client customizing. You can see here customizing user and cross-client customizing. We can also see SAP all with cross-client customizing. So you have additional selections which also you can also see customizing including cross-client customizing. And so we have additional selection criteria, that is additional profiles which is applicable for your remote client copy. Okay, so in our case, let's take the simple one, SAP user, and we need to select the destination, that is the RFC destination. Select the RFC destination. This is the RFC destination which we have created, ECC underscore CPY underscore CLN. So if you select the RFC destination, then you can see the source system and the source client. Okay, so this is very important. Make sure that you get the source system and source client from the RFC destinations, the same one which we have configured before you starting. You can also do the scheduled job, background job, start immediate, that is in the foreground, and you can also do this RFC system compare. That's what we have seen. So in the remote system, remote client copy, you have an additional option which is called RFC system compare to compare the repository. And when you take over the mouse here, you can also see repository comparison. If you simply click here, then it will start comparing the system. It will use this RFC destination to compare the systems. Now it's finished the comparison. It says no inconsistency found. If it found some inconsistency, it will also give the table name and what application, what package, and all this kind of informations. Okay, right now there is no inconsistency. Of course, this is a fresh system, so we don't expect any inconsistency there. So in order to start the client copy, we just select in background. We can also do the test run here in case if you wanted to make sure that everything is fine. We can also use the test run. It's similar test run, it's nothing different. So let's directly go to the background, and we can also select the background server if it is necessary, but in our case we just leave it blank and schedule the job. Okay, this is the options we have selected. We have the RFC destination, that is the source destination, and the system and client, and this is the selection criteria. This is the profiles we have selected. Let's say continue. Okay, now the background job is successfully scheduled. We can monitor the background job in our transaction SCC3. Go to SCC3. Okay, you can see this process is running. You can also see what mode, if it's a remote system, remote client copy. If it was a local client copy, you can see here it was local. It's in our previous exercise it was local, and here you can see it's remote, so we can see what is actually happening. You can also see the detail here, so what is happening here. So the detail logs, system logs, as well as the more details also you can find it here. Right now we do not have anything because you just started the copy. It will take little more time than the normal local client copy because you are copying from the remote system. You can see the details of summary, what is going to be copied, the total number of tables, the number of customizing and system table is 2, number of application table is 3. These are all going to be copied. Okay, let's wait for the system to complete the remote client copy, then we will continue it again. Now you can see the copy client is successfully completed, ECQ 102. Now let us go to /NSU01. Let's check one of the user which we have created. Now you can see the user is already copied here with the necessary data. Okay, this is remote client copy. So we have successfully copied the client from ECC system to ECQ system using remote client copy method. Now so far what we have seen is client copy, local copy, as well as remote client copy. Now let us see what is client copy parallel processing. In the client copy functions, we can use multiple parallel processing which can speed up the client copy operations. Of course, we need to take all other factors as well into consideration. For example, your network performance and database performance and everything we need to take into consideration in order to increase the performance of the client copy process. However, within SAP, we have a concept called parallel processing. Using this parallel processing, we can increase the process speed of the client copy functionality. The client copy process are generated at runtime environment. At the runtime, the parallel process, the RFC process, is managed by RFC group. We already seen what is RFC group. Using RZ12, we can create RFC group. That you must specify also the number of parallel processes you want to use in the client copy process. Meaning to say, you can use the parallel process not only for the remote client, also we can use it for our we can also use it for the local client. Meaning to say, so if in case we are using it for the local system, then the RFC call will be an internal call. So we can define internally how many work process should be assigned to this particular client copy process. So it will be quite faster. So it's not only for the remote copy, we can also use this client copy for the local process itself. So with this, we can specify the number of processes we should use for the client copy process. So using SM59, we can create RFC destinations, which already know. Using SM59 also we can create RFC group. Otherwise, we can use the transaction code RZ12 to create this RFC groups. Using SM59, we will create anyway the RFC destination, then use the RZ12 to create the RFC group, so that it can increase the speed of your entire client copy process. And now you may think, okay, if let's say we have multiple processes running the same time, if one process fails, then what happens? So the parallel processing itself is designed such a way that during the execution of client copy using parallel process, each parallel process will check the other processing if it is running. If in case the other parallel process has failed, then it automatically restarts the particular parallel processing. Okay, let's go to the system and see how we can configure or how we can use parallel processing to speed up the client copy process. Or let's go to the client 101, one of the client which we have created. So we don't want to create the client again. Let's use 101. Okay, so let's go to SM59, where we can create the RFC group. You can also create the RFC group from here. We already created our client, we already create our RFC destination to do the remote client copy. Here also we can create it. If you go to extras, you can see RFC group. Right now we have only one instance running. If you have more than one instance, then we can use it. However, if you have one instance also, if you want to define more than one work process, then we can use this. Because normally when you run any background job or when you run the particular client copy in the background or foreground, you will only occupy only one work process. We did not see that. Maybe we can see that in the later stages. Let's say now let's create a group. Let's say RFC underscore group. And okay, this is the instance we assigned. Okay, we already assigned the same quota whatever we have. Okay, now let's assume we want to use this group which we have created for parallel processing. We can use in SCCL or SCC9, that means to local client copy or in the remote client copy. Let's go to SCCL first. Local client copy, you can see here, let's say I'm copying it from client 000. Then I will say here you can specify. Okay, here you can specify the number of parallel processing you want to assign. Let's say 3 or 4 or 5. It depends on how fast you want to finish it, and select the logon group. Okay, this is a logon group RFC. Then you save it. Then you can schedule it in background. Or let's say if in case we are talking about uh, remote client copy, then you CC9. Then we have the parallel processing here. Then you specify it here. Okay, so let's maybe we will do it in local client copy. Go to SCCL, take it from client 000. Let's say parallel processing. I will assign 5 work processes from this particular group. So if you have more than one instances, then it will assign to different instances. In our case we have only one instance, but we wanted to use 5 different work processes. So if I go to SM51, we have many work processes which we have seen before. So we have only one server. Inside the server we have many work processes. We have 16 different work processes. So from here we have 9 dialog work process and 3 background work process. So here 5 means it can be dialog work process or or background work process depending on the situation. Let's say right now 5 and save it. Let's start the background job. Let's say this is a source client, this is the profile. Background server we don't assign it. Let's say start immediately and schedule the job. Okay, continue. Now if I go to SCC3, we can monitor the job. So now the client copy is running. It's a local client copy. Now if I go to SM66, that is to monitor the active work process. Let's go to SM66, or we can also check it in SM50. You can see the system wide work process, because in SM50 what you can see is only for the specific instance. In SM66 the advantage is that you can see the whole system. That means system wide you can see. Right now you can see we have 5 different work process which is active, which is all coming from SAP Star. Basically it's all running the job which we have triggered. Okay, the copying system, client copying. So you can see 5 different jobs running. Okay, this is the way we can assign more than one work process in order to speed up the client, because this is very important when you are working in a bigger system. Then you have very limited number of very limited time which you want to finish your client copy. So you can use the entire resource in the system to copy the client, or if the resource is free, meaning to say if the resource is free, we can use all the resources which is presently available and to copy the client, and you can quickly finish the client copy process, or you can increase the performance of your client copy process. The next one what we are going to see is client transport. Client transport is little bit different from the client copy. It does not uses the RFCs like a client copy. However, the transport is used to copy between one SAP system or different SAP system from one SAP system or from one SAP client to a different SAP system or a remote SAP client, we can say. So the client transport, you do not need any RFC connections. So you can copy from one SAP system to another SAP system without RFC destinations. In this particular method of client transport, method of client copy has two steps. The first step is to client export, that is to extract the client data from the source client to a file in the operating system level. Then the data is imported from operating system level in the target client. So we have two steps. So first you will export this data to the operating system level, same like our transport files. You have data files and co-files. Then these files can be copied physically, or if let's say if it is in the same transport directory, then we can use the same transport directory. Otherwise, if you are copying to a remote system, then you can copy physically to the other system, then you can import it into that system from the operating system level. That means you copy this over this particular TRs to the target system, then you import the files to the target client. Now you may think, if let's say we have the client copy using RFC destination, then why do we need to export into the different client? We export in the operating system level. The advantage here is, let's say you are copying to a different network, or if you are copying over WAN connections, then you do not have that much bandwidth, then it can be a problem. In that case, you can export everything to a client, and then you can import, copy it to a different media, then transport it, then you give it to the next system, then they can copy it back and import it. That could be the reason. Otherwise, let's say these two networks are not linked each other in any case, then we can use this use this client transport methodology to copy clients. First, you need to log into the source client. Then you use the transaction SCC8 for the client export and select the data which you want to copy. That means our profiles which we have seen it before. Then indicate the target system which the client will be copied. That means the target system must be defined in the STMS as part of transport domain if it is possible. Otherwise also you can export it without target system as well. So then you will start the client export steps. However, make sure that particular step is executed in the background process. As you know, this is going to take quite a lot of time. Then the client export process, this particular process will create 3 different files, and the export of client will be done in asynchronous methodology by using the standard TP programs in the operating system level. So you have to make sure that you have at least single system landscape configured in at least the minimum TMS setting is configured in your system in order to do the export in order to TP to execute this particular commands. So the export process generally will create 3 files, as I said. Then the first one is this rx number. This is basically related to SAP scripts. It's for the SAP script. Then we have RT. This file consists of client specific data. Then we have RO, that is client independent data, that is cross client customizing data. So you need to remember this one quite carefully. If you start the client export using the transaction code SEC8, then you can monitor the log in SE01. Okay, so basically your request number will be SID, then KO, then the running number. For example, for the cross client tables, if it is a client specific table, then SID, then in our case it can be ECC or ECQ, then KT, then some running number. This for the client specific data or client specific table entries, and SID, then KX, then running number is SAP script text. So during the client export, there is no information available in SEC3. This is very important because of the client export is done in TP as well as generally, mainly this TP is calling your R3 trans, and R3 trans is going to be the one who is going to do this client export. So don't get confused here. You may find in SEC3 saying that it is aborted, but the client export is still running, so you can get the detail in SE01. This is our first step. Then the second step, you will do the import process using STMS. Again, this depends on the type of data you have selected. That means the type of profile which you are selected. Based on that, you are going to create the number of files. Based on the data, you will have these files. Moreover, this client transport files or client transport TRs are not imported into the target system if in case you are using import all functionality. The reason behind that is quite important. Let's say you have import all, which is scheduled for a period of time. In that case, if you add any client export TR into a TMS, then that import all will not import the particular TR. This has to be imported manually by selecting the specific TRs. So once you finish the import process using STMS, then you have the third step. It's called the post import process. Then you will use the transaction code SCC7 in order to complete the post import process in the target system. And moreover, please remember, when we are copying from one system to another system, you always need to check the consistency of the repository. We can use SEC8, check the RFC system consistency check to check the above dictionary are consistent. So that is quite important. Otherwise, if it is inconsistent, then you will result into some errors. Moreover, while the particular transport is being imported to the SAP system, you cannot see it in SEC3 because it's related to transport. However, you can see the status in SE09. Okay, let us go to our SAP system and copy the client from ECC to ECQ system. Okay, we are going to copy the client 000 to ECQ system 102. That's a client which we used before. So we will copy from ECC system client 000 to ECQ system 102. So let us log into our ECC system. as we seen before, using SAP Star, we cannot do client export from uh, the source system because it's a standard user, which we also seen it before that you cannot create TRs using SAP Star. So if you go to SCC4, you can see you'll get a message that you cannot use the user with star. That means SAP Star cannot be used. So we have to create one temporary user, SU01 SAP basis client copy. Let's create a user. Let's give a initial password. I will add the profile SAP new and SAP all. So let us log in using this user 000. This is our user ID. Since it's first time, we need to change the user ID, change the password. Okay, we changed our password. Okay, let's use the transaction code SCC8 now. Now we can see we can select the source profile and the target system. Let's select the source profile. Let's use the SAP user and roles. And the target system, we need to select the target system. Let's say our target system is ECQ. And the target client is 102. Okay, then we schedule the background job. You can also check the RFC consistency check. Using the RFC consistency check, you can check the consistency of the target system. Right now we do not have any RFC created, so if you have an RFC created, you can maintain the RFC and make the consistency check. It's same like previously what we have seen in the remote client copy, that you can do the consistency check. Here also we can use the consistency check. However, you need to have an RFC connection, but this RFC connection we will not use it for client copying. Okay, then let's schedule the background job. Let's say immediate and schedule job. Let's say continue. Okay, now it says this is new since release 4.5. import by STMS, client export, up to 3 requests are created depending on the data selected and the available data. That's what we have seen. This is ECK KO001. This will be cross client data. Then ECC KT001. Then it will be client specific data. Then ECC KX0001. That will be client specific text. Okay, when the transport request when created successfully, data will be exported asynchronously with the transport program TP in the operating system level. This may take several hours, and the status of the export can be found using either SCC3 or in SC01 of the transport request. Meaning to say, we can see also in SCC3 in some cases which we have seen that SCC3 will shows it has been terminated. So don't get confused with that. So don't start the export again. So you go to SC01 and check the transports whether the transport is still exporting, or the export completed successfully, because we already know what are the export steps. The export steps, we can see whether it is completed successfully or not. So we can go to SE01 and check it, or SE09, and check this particular TR. Then client import, then choose of the one of the above requests in the transport request management, import overview. Then other transport requests are selected automatically. Okay, this is also quite important. You can just add one of the transport, and other should be imported automatically or added automatically to start the import. Then you should do the post processing using SEC7 after you finish all the import. Okay, so our TR names going to be ECC KO00001. Okay, let's say okay. So let's go to SCC3. We cannot find any information here, so it does not mean that we do not have any logs. That's what we've seen it before. So let's go to SC01. So based on the information what we have, we are selected the profile which is user, that is only uh, client specific tables, so it should be in SID KT, then the number. Let's go to SID KT001. Let's go to the logs. Then we can see the logs, the export which is completed with some warning. If you go to the operating system, then we should be able to see this particular export file. If I go to the operating system, let's log into our system, go to Windows Explorer, USR SAP trans, go to the co-file. You can see KT0001.ECC is created. Okay. So that is the first step, which we have successfully completed, the first export step. So let's now go to the step 2, that is importing into the target system. So let us log into our ECQ system. So the target client which you want to copy is 102. Let's go to SAP star, and the next step is that using STMS, that we need to import this particular transport into our target system. So the target system, we go to STMS import, but this particular TR will not be there because the transport directory is not same, so we are not using any transport route. So using STMS, we can import this TR into our system. Anyway, we are using the same transport directory, so in that case it should not be a big problem. So let's go to STMS, go to transport overview, ECQ system. We can see the transport is already available in the queue. Let's say adjust the import queue. Yes, one transport needs to be adjusted. Okay, here you can see it's a client transport. Okay, these are all the legends which we have seen before. This is a client transport. Now you can see the legend, it's a client transport. Here you can see it's a red color, that means request will not be imported. So whenever in the normal import, the this particular tr will not be imported using the mass import. So select the tr and let's say import. Now we can see a different kind of screen when you selected the import. Here we can say client administration. Let's say if you do not have any client or you want to do some client changes, then you can do the client administration here. In our case everything is fine, so let's go back. Sorry. Then let's say import. Okay, we say import, we need to log into the system. ECQ 102, let's say it's our target system. Now you can see if the TP started the import. You can monitor the import using SE01. Okay, this TP is trying to connect. Import buffer. So the import into the system ECQ is started. Okay, now we can see the import is running. You can also see here, or you can also see in SE01, both are same. Okay, let us wait for the import to complete. Now if we see the import is completed, now let's do the next step. Go to SCC7 in the system ECQ, SCC7, that is the post import process, and this is the TR which we have imported, and this is the profile we imported with, this is the source system. Okay, schedule it into background, schedule the task into background, say immediate, job scheduling, continue. Okay, now this should be able to see in SCC3. SCC3, you can see this is being initialized. Now the mode, you can see it's an import mode, that means export import mode. Now this has to complete, so we have to wait till this complete in order to have the transport imported into the system and activated properly into the target system. Now you can see the import is completed successfully. Next we will see client deletion. So far what we have seen is client creation and client copy. We will see how we can delete a client from an SAP system. To delete an SAP client, first you need to log into the specific client which you want to delete. Then you run the transaction code SEC5. Then you can start the deletion from the specific client itself. You can execute this same like, again this also same like client copy. You can also execute it by background. It's highly recommended to execute it by background. When you delete the client entry from table T00, the transaction SEC4, you can tick mark this this button, delete the entry from client 00. That means it will delete the entry what we have created in the transaction code SEC4. Then this particular client will not be available in SEC4 anymore. Once the data will be totally deleted, then the entry from the client, entry from the table T00 also will be deleted. However, it does not eliminate the data belonging to the client. That means the client specific data remains in the SAP system. Uh, that means the occupying the space of SAP system. So the client specific data will be still available. So let's say in case if you delete the client maintenance from SCC4, uh, it generally allows you to delete the client without deleting the client from SCC5. It is still possible, meaning to say it will delete the entry from client T000. However, all the data belonging to the particular client will be still available in the system. So if you want to entirely delete the client from the SAP system, then you need to use the transaction code SCC5, then delete the entries. This will take some time. So once you delete the entries, all the entries will be deleted from this particular client. Then you delete the uh, client from SCC4, or you can also select this option to delete the particular client. Otherwise, if you untick this one, the client entry will be still there, but the data will be deleted from the client. So it's very important. Just don't delete the client only from SCC4 and thinking that all the data will be cleaned, but it's not the case. You have to go to SCC5 and delete the client from there. We can also check in our system how we can delete the client. Let's go to ECQ system. This is our ECQ system. Let us delete the client 102. Let's go back. Then we go to transaction code SCC5. Then we are going to delete the client 102, delete the entries from T000 and delete in background immediately schedule. Okay, so we are going to delete all the entries, whatever is available in this particular client, and say continue. Now if I go to SCC3, now the deletion is initialized, it's been processed. We are still in the client 102, and from 102 we are trying to delete the same client. It still works. Once you finished, you log out from the system, then it is no more available, no more usable. This is SCC1. We will come back to this slide again. Let's see monitoring clients. So this is also a very important topic. Okay, next one is monitoring client. To display all the log files of complete local remote client or the client import, we have a transaction SCC3, which we have seen it before, which we have used while we are copying. This particular transaction will provide the log of the copying process. This log gives quite a lot of information. It gives table statistics, it gives you the control information, it also gives you the information about each table which is copied, including the link which is related to the IMG configuration. If you double click on the entries, you can also drill down to each of these informations, what table is copied. Even when you are copying, the client itself can give you all the details what is being copied. And also if you are using parallel processing, also you can see how many processors are being used. And if in case your client copy ends with some errors, you will be able to monitor all these errors from this particular log files, and then you can do the recopying of the SAP system once the error is fixed. Uh, Basically, all these log files are saved in the OS level in the transport directory with the name cc, then have running number dot sid, where this number is the mm, serial client copy number, which we can say, so which has also this information about the client copy, client transport informations. If let's say if the uh, copy is terminated unexpectedly, then you will be able to see the log. If it is error, then you can go to the detailed log file and find out why the copy is actually terminated. We can also go to our system. Right now we are running this deletion process, which is again running. If you want to see the detail of this process, you can select this one and say detail. Then you can see we have 5 processes running. Actually, we configure the parallel processing before 5 processing, so the configuration is still there until unless we remove it. For the deletion process also, it's using 5 different processes. You can see process 1 2 3 4 5, and this is the server which is using it, and each process is deleting one specific table, which you can see. Okay, so if you can see it here, you can it also has the graphical monitor, which you can see. So you can use this graphical monitor to monitor the status of the particular client or a client copy. This is also quite useful. So if you go to monitor, and you can also go to the system log and more details here, it will also give you the tables and how many tables has been copied or how many table needs to be copied. This kind of information you can drill down to more detail of all this analysis. Next, let us see how to use the SCC1, that is using transport request, that is by copying the transport request from one client to another client. This we have seen it before. What is the use of SCC1? Let's see how the SCC1 work in multiple client environment. Let's go to our system. Let's go to 101. So let's take one TR which is from the different client. Let's say I will go to STMS import. Just we wanted to see how it's going to work. Okay, let me take one of the TR. Generally it is done in the development system. We just wanted to see how it's going to work. 001, this is a source client, this is the TR. Okay, include the request subtask as well. We can say start immediately because this is going to be quite small. You want to copy client specific data from 001 to 0101. Say yes. You can also schedule it in background. In normal scenario you will schedule it background, so I assume the content of this particular TR is quite small, so we do it in the foreground. Now it is analyzing the particular TR. Now the import run successfully. Let's go to /NSC01. This is a TR. Q. What was the content of this particular TR? Okay, it had a role. Let's see whether the role is already in this particular client. /n efct. You can see that role is already copied to this particular client. This is SCC1. Using SCC1 you can do the testing of the TRs which is already in the development system. Okay, with this we are coming to the end of this session. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next session. Bye bye.